We're Chatterton Builders. We're based in Christchurch. We sort of service most of the Canterbury region, and we specialise in mostly passive house construction and energy efficient builds, mostly specialising using SIPS panels and other energy efficient methods. And the biggest issue we're having with our building company, I guess, at that time was we were coming to join APB was because we're coming off the back of the earthquake, and the insurance work was coming to an end, and it had been 5 or 6 years since the earthquakes, and so we had to really find a new marketing strategies and how we were going to get back to business as usual of what we were doing before the earthquakes. And obviously the old days of that was a lot of word of mouth sort of stuff, but things had evolved quite a lot in 5 or 6 years, the earthquake. So we had to really get back up with the play really and try and catch up again. So that's where we sort of reached out to APB to help us with that journey. I hadn't really tried other coaches too much, just very briefly we had, but nothing too major. I guess what we had kind of looked at was the possibility of going towards franchise companies, and I learned a lot in that process, and what they did as far as systems and that goes, and I just kind of came to the conclusion that, with a bit of help from somebody else, we better might as well be just doing it ourselves rather than trying to follow somebody else's templates, which I didn't think worked overly well for us. I found APB, obviously, same channels that we get a lot of our work, and that was through Facebook, and managed to sort of discuss that with Claire, my wife, and thought we need to go down that track. And so, had a one-on-one session with Alex for about an hour, and pretty much sold us on that at that stage, and pretty much that's how it sort of started. Really, was just once we talked to Alex about what we needed and what they could offer, it just seemed a natural fit process to go down that journey. They haven't been little gains that we've had. We've had large gains, I guess. We've been doing it for a while now, I suppose, and it takes a long time for those gains to come through. You get the wee gains in the short periods, but the thing that blows me away is the big gains that you make in the long term. Once we get our CRM set up, and it blows you away that you get stuff comes back to you 12, 18 months later, and these people are all qualified, and you just don't know where they've come from, and they know more about you than you know about them. And it's really cool the way that's happened. One of the bigger gains that you get is that you specialise in something, and so when you become an authority and quite knowledgeable about stuff, you can really protect your margin. So I think that's been a really big thing for us, is not just getting busier and busier, but actually just protecting that margin and making sure that you're profitable. So we've had that happen a couple of times where we just stick to our guns on our pricing and show the people the value that we give them for that extra money. And I think it really pays, like people just know that they're going to get good service and good jobs done and professional jobs. So trying to get specific on which ones we've had big margin gains. I think I guess one of the ones we had recently was we don't like going to the tender process, but one we did go into a tender process with. We weren't the cheapest builder, and the owners selected us based on how we presented ourselves and professionally presented our proposals, and so they just said it was chalk and cheese to the other two builders. So it was a no-brainer to them just to work with us and sit back down after the tender process and try and trim the price back with us a little bit, but we still protected our margin from the tender, and we completed that job really, really well. He'd had a bad experience with the architect, but we finished the job on a really, really cool note. And the guy's a raving fan of ours now. He's probably a real A1 client of ours. So it was probably a good gain. For a long time, we didn't have good clients, because for a long time with the earthquakes, they were always insurance people that have been through insurance battles. Even before we started the job, difficult customers, let alone only finish the jobs on a good note. So it's really cool the last couple of years to finish jobs on a real good note, which is a lot better. our net profits were always below 10%. They were sort of hovering around that, I don't know, 6, 7, 8s now. And then we'd managed to lift them up to sort of 10s to 12s, but even more recently, we're starting to get even better now. We're starting to 15s, 18s. It's really, quite exciting that we can actually start to finally believe ourselves that we can achieve that. No, it's really hard to believe. Now, I don't know whether you know the full story of how we've gone through APB. We kind of went through that whole thing, and in 2 years we kind of stopped. And when we went through that patch, we were going through a really, really bad patch. Like, we'd gone through 2 years or so with ABB and put all the stuff in place, and everything was in place, but we still hadn't climbed out of the hole. And then so we just had to go away and do the stuff that we had learned instead of just keep learning it. And so I guess implementing it and putting it into place is what we have done in the last 2 years. So then now it's obvious for us to just jump on board again and keep pressing home with all of and getting refreshed and reminded of what we should and shouldn't be doing. But it's just the wee things now that make a massive difference. It blows me away, like 1 or 2%, either way can just make a huge difference. And I guess I didn't appreciate that much previously. I guess because we have gone backwards, the next step to keep going forward is, I guess, quite often talk about a glass ceiling situation, I guess, and we sort of scaled back a wee bit in size to be able to implement all those systems and things into place, which is what we did. And I guess we've got to the point now, and obviously another reason for jumping back on board is we really, to move forward a little bit further now, I've really critically got to employ a very good top-end staff almost to take over and help run, or pretty much run the business, so that I can just keep focusing on the sales stuff. So at the moment, I guess I'm still doing sales and project management and overseeing the business. So I've really got to let the reins go of that project management. Our guys on site manage the jobs extremely well, but I just need someone to take care of overseeing the construction side of things, so that I can focus more on the sales and marketing and closing more of those deals off at good margins. Certainly recommend APB to other builders. I guess I've been a bit like some other builders that I've spoken to in the past that have been part of APB, and you don't want to spread the word too much because you think that's such a big point of difference. But Alex has harped onto me for years about it's a race to the top and not a race to the bottom. And so I think it's really, really critical that more and more builders do get on board with APB, so that we can all lift the bar on how we operate and make good proper margins and stuff, and stop these other builders falling over. So yeah, definitely, if anybody's keen or willing to get on board with APB, I'd be always recommending and happy to talk to them and encourage them to do it, that's for sure.